Alrighty, here is my free 1998-ish John Deere Gator. In the last two episodes, we were able to snag this thing for free from a farmer, drag it home, free a stuck valve, bang on the starter with a hammer, hook it up to a boat battery, and get her to run off the bottle after we cleaned the ignition switch and sorted out the farmer wiring. In the last episode, we converted it to take a Group 34 car battery, put a battery tray in the thing, cleaned out the fuel tank, repaired the fuel gauge, primed the fuel system, pulled the carburetor, dumped all the chunky rust out of it, freed the stuck choke and throttle valves, which literally would not move, even with pliers, to the point where now the carburetor is, for the most part, functioning perfectly fine, although the engine surges. There's probably a lot of things wrong with it, but it will idle and it will run. And then we freed up the primary clutch, which was seized to the shaft, and so now it properly engages and tensions the belt, and we drove it from there to there. Now, in this episode, I just spent the first money on this thing last night. I bought a set of 4 tire tubes, and we're going to tube all 4 tires, and I bought a tune-up kit. So we're going to do an oil change, replace the air filter, the spark plug, and the oil filter. Additionally, we're going to have to do something about these tie rod boots. I don't know a jury-rigged hack I can do for that yet, but I'm thinking about it. I might just be able to get some old bike inner tube or something and cut it and wrap it, pump it full of grease, and then zip tie the whole thing together or something. We'll see. I'll try something stupid. I need to grease all the grease points. I fixed the parking brake last episode, but it still doesn't do anything. But now the cable is actually connected to the brake system. I'm gonna have to replate this bed. Don't know what I'm gonna do about that. Probably just get some license plates and bang it in there. I might just get a stop sign or some road signs and just run it the whole way across it. I kind of don't want to do that because there's these channels I'm not going to be able to do anything about, and I do want the water to drain out of it. But I guess if there's holes back here still and I just put a plate over the top of it, it will drain still. So yeah, we're gonna do something about that. We're gonna ignore that big hole over there in the frame. And what else? Oh, we're gonna repair this cowl. I need to go replace this headlight, but I'm gonna try and fix it because I can. I tried using defroster tab adhesive to repair it, and that didn't work. But the filament's still good. It's just that the post is broken off and I can't solder to it. So we're gonna try and repair that with some encapsulated gallium, or just try and solder the thing and see if we can blow the light bulb up. And so far everything else is working. Oh, the choke cable is seized, so I'm going to try and pull that choke cable off, and see if I can get it to free up, and see if I can somehow repair that chunk of metal that is just somehow missing out the side of it. And that probably won't work, so we'll just probably buy a choke cable, or we'll just zip tie something to the end of the cable housing and just have a little pull cord or something stupid. We'll figure it out. We'll play around with it. But yeah, we are officially at the spending money state, and we are going to spend money sparingly, but we will spend money, and we will try and get this thing operational. Oh, and I gotta do something about these seats, because this one's starting to go, so it needs cover, and that one already gone. So we'll figure something out. But come along for the ride, and we're gonna have some fun, and we're gonna get creative. We're gonna see just what we can do with very little. Alright, while we wait on tubes, I've got 2 goals for tonight. I'm going to grease all the grease points, which so far I can find are that, and that, and also take needle fitting and get either tie rod end, and that's all I know of. Assumedly, I also need to grease the inside of the rack and pinion, but I haven't looked for the zerk fitting yet, so if it's got one, I'll get it, and if it doesn't, I won't. But I'm not seeing one yet. Anyway, I don't see any grease fittings on it, so it ain't gonna get any greased, at least not till I do tie rod boots. The other thing is I want to get this choke cable off, and that means disconnecting that up there, which I know is already going to fight me, and disconnecting that there, which I know is fighting me, because I already tried. and the whole thing spins. And I can't unscrew this because there's no metal left. I don't know how the hell that happened, but I can't take that guy off because that spins. I could just snap this off, which, I'm just going to. Wow, that was easy. And we'll try and get at least the nub off of there. But, yeah. That's interesting. I wonder if I can just, like, bash that through there. But I don't really have a way to get that off of there. I don't even know if there's a screw down there. Or a nut. There's not even a nut down there. So, I don't really know what to do about that. Because it should just thread in there, and that should just be a lock nut, and I have no way to unlock it. So, something. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But those are my goals. Get that sucker off and out of here so I can figure out whether it's repairable in any way, shape, and form, or if I just need to buy a new choke cable, because I'm probably going to need to just buy a new choke cable, and put grease in things, and that's it. Not a big list. Just waiting on tubes. Okie dokie. Well, those have all been greased, and that was pretty painless. I also just sort of jammed the grease needle in there and pumped like a ½ ounce of grease on either side of the rack and pinion, just to be safe. And I was going to grease the hubs over here, but they're actually their own sealed contained bearings, so I won't do that. So that's nice to see. One less thing I probably don't have to worry about. Alright, choke cable time. Well, without too much trouble, we actually got that out. Thankfully, the John Deere was smart enough to key this guy, so it actually would have just come off with a wrench, but I just hit it with the impact gun because I figured I got one shot before this thing starts spinning. So I just figured I'd hit it and try and break it free and get it to spin off, but didn't need to, so that's off. And cable is free inside of here, it's just that it's not free up here. So I'm going to take this in on the workbench and just kind of like do something. I think I'm going to try and like drill into that real quick. I don't really know how this actually attaches. I'm assuming that there is just a threaded rod that sticks out of here, and I already took the knob off, and I have that lying in wait, and I'm assuming I need to keep this nut and all that. I'm wondering if I can somehow retrofit that to actually work with that. We'll see if we can get this to come around or not. I don't know, but give it a shot. Okay, so I'm busting out the big guns to start out with. What I've done is drilled a 3/32 hole into the tip of this shaft after I tapped it in a little bit, and then I have just screwed in a whatever the hell size little tiny ass machine screw. And then I have taken a properly sized screw, I don't know what pitch, you're just going to have to guess, but I pulled this shaft out of the choke knob, confirmed the pitch, swapped the nut over to this bolt, threaded it all the way down in here, cut the head off of it, then threaded the cut end all the way down in here, and then torqued on this lock nut again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this screw back out, thread it into here. And I'm not using a tapper or anything. I just walled out the head of this. I'm just screwing the screw straight in, and it's just a small enough diameter that's able to go in. And we're going to essentially thread this for this, and then we're going to back both of those out, measure the exact perfect length that we need this to be, minus a little bit, and then we're going to screw that all the way down into there, and then we're going to coat this whole thing in 5-minute epoxy, and then screw that down into there. Cut the head off at the pre-measured mark, and then screw that in here, and then that should give us one continuous shaft that should mostly be held together with epoxy, and then we can further sand and grind on this and do something with it, and that should get me to some point where I can maybe potentially be able to use this as is. So we will play around with that, and then we will soak it in penetrating oil after the epoxy cures, and that should allow me to move that shaft or that cable up and down in there. And I will try and also, I already have and will continue to spray liquid wrench into the gullet of this guy up here, trying to get it to work itself down into here to work on the back of this. And we'll just play around with that because we have time, and we might as well. Okie dokie, well, I have got that schmood together, and we're going to let that cure for probably 48 hours since it's cool out. And I used JB Weld instead of 5-minute epoxy because I realized that's probably better for gluing two pieces of steel together. And I'm hoping that this JB Weld does not stick to this greasy fitting down here, or I'll be in a world of hurt. And they also didn't thread in there; they're just kind of tapped in there, so this probably is not going to work. But I'm hoping at the very least I might be able to, push it down in there and then, fill it full of oil and hopefully get it to do something. So I'm going to go dangle this upside down somewhere. One, so that the JB Weld doesn't move and, fill that up. And two, so that I continue to spray crap up in here. So we'll kind of like jury rig it in a way so that, things do what I want them to do. Okie dokie. So that guy is mostly dry. It's been close to 24 hours. I'm not going to wail on it yet. I'm going to give it like 48 hours. But we are going to start soaking it. But rather than, saturate all of the JB Weld in penetrating oil, I'm going to wait and give that, 48, 72 hours, something like that, whenever the hell I get around to it. But we are going to try and fill up this entire housing for the cable with liquid wrench and, just allow that to percolate down through there. So we shall see. But yeah, I've already been doing that, and it's a little hard to get in there. This liquid wrench comes out as like a foam out of this Yilden, can, which is annoying. I like the PB Blaster because it comes out as like a laminar flow, so I can't actually fill something up. This comes out as a foam, so it kind of just bubbles out immediately, so it's very hard to fill it up. But we'll get to it eventually. Okay, well, while this marinates and hopefully get some juice down in there and freeze up, we're going to work on the most important part of this entire build, the beer holder. Because if you notice, this thing has a glove box, but no beer holder. And you can't have a UTV without a beer holder. So my plan is to take this big old 4-inch piece of used sewer pipe that I pulled out of a septic system somewhere some years ago or something. I don't know. There's probably no poop in it. I'm going to cut a 4-inch section off the end of it. And then I'm going to go attempt to find and or buy a 4-inch sewer pipe cap and just slap her on the bottom of this, stick a little bit of foam in the bottom, and then I'm going to try and find some spring steel, which I've already used up, I think, all the spring steel I have. So we'll find something to retrofit that I can just make like a big tab that's about the size of my finger, like this, that sticks out like that. So because I have a big fat 1 liter insulated water bottle that I need to fit in here, and I think the diameter of that is 3.5 inches. But I also want it to be able to take cans. And I know that the standard John Deere beer holders for lawnmowers have these little metal spring tabs on them. And if you stick a beer can in there, it will not let it go, and it'll rip the whole bottom of the can off. Ask me how I know. And yeah, I want to be able to put bottles, water bottles, cans, and my big thermos in here and have it hold it securely and work. And we're going to mount this to the dash. We might like hose clamp it to in the front of the glove box, or we might be able to get it to mount to the plastic. I really don't want to mount anything to that plastic because that plastic is brittle as hell. And that big old water bottle weighs like 5 pounds. So I'm probably going to end up hose clamping it or hooking it onto the glove box thing. And I guess theoretically I could just throw my water bottle in the glove box, but we're going to have to build one anyway. And I have some 3-inch pipe, so if this doesn't work, we can use a 3-inch pipe. And I don't have to drag the 7-foot piece out of the shed. So yeah, I'm gonna cut this. Attempt to find a bottom for this. Actually, here's something I've done before with fishing pole holders. Is if you get a piece of PVC, you can actually drill holes in it, and then you just run fishing line through it, and you run it in a fancy like lattice pattern, and actually it works like a bottom and as cushion. It's pretty slick. I don't know how much I trust that, and it's also really tedious. I don't feel like doing it. So yeah, I might cut this a little long. I don't know. Well, I got plenty of pipe. I'll just cut another piece if that doesn't work. But yeah, we're going to cut that out. And I'm also, in order to get a can out of here, you're going to have a way to get fingers in here. So I'm going to just go around here and cut like a 1-inch U out of this all the way around. And then we'll basically mount the springs in between. Or we might do 2 springs. We might do 3 springs. Probably do 2 or 4 springs. Maybe just 1 big spring. And then we'll have a bracket mounted through the bolt that holds one of those springs out here, and then that'll either bolt straight to the dash or it'll hook onto the bar in front of the glove box. So anyway, I'm going to do that, and we'll see if I can whip something together. Alright, so I fabric cobbled this thing out of some plywood, PVC, deck screws, the one piece of spring steel I had lying around, that is this, I don't even think this spring is going to work. Might have to flip it upside down. And this some kind of hanger bracket I had and a metric bolt that I need to get rid of. And we'll just throw this on here as a prototype. And if it works, it was intended that way. And so it just kind of hooks on right there. I would like it to be a little bit more vertical. I can move this guy in here, but I won't be able to get my water bottle in there. Well, not unless I get rid of that spring. Could flip the spring around that way, but kind of defeats the purpose. I want the spring here so it pushes stuff backwards so that the center of gravity is straight down rather than out here. And this ain't gonna come off under normal circumstances. Your beer will fall out before that does. And yeah, that's a good first start. We'll see whether or not we need to do anything more. Probably going to need to change that spring jobber, but I don't have anything else I can use at the moment, so we're gonna call that good for now. But yeah, you can definitely throw beer just straight in there, pull it out. Let's grab the starting fluid and see how it works with the starting fluid. Starting fluid is about the size of beer. So spring is probably not going to sprung. Yeah, but you know, a hold of beer. Not gonna work great for bottles. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do something with it. Okay, well, I swapped that around. I'm just gonna not put my big old thermos bottle in there. I'll just throw it in the glove box. That's a much better solution anyway. And I'll probably take some foam and stick it in here and here and here. I think I've got an old yoga block lying around that I have for various purposes such as this, and I think I'll cut some strips out. I think I'll put a little dollop there and cut some strips out or something. Just to, you know, give it a little bit more oomph. And we'll play around with that, but that should be, for the most part, good to go. Alright, well, by some miracle, I freed up the choke cable. So, yeah, it comes out that far. So apparently that's the closed position, which is kind of crazy. That's a lot of choke shaft. But anyway, it was primarily the liquid wrench going down the back of that worked. And what I ended up doing was I took that rod, or this little bit that I epoxied on there. I grabbed this nut in the vise and just tapped this guy with the hammer and just slowly pulled it out. And then from there it was pretty much free, so I just used the old 3-in-1 oil and, you know, stroke the oily shaft method, and she was free and as wet as a whistle. And I think we'll go throw her right back in there. I need to be asleep already, but you know, I don't know. I'm on some sort of like manic bender the last couple of weeks, so yeah. Don't know why, but we're gonna do that because productivity, I think. All right, well, there we are. Oddly, it works better from the actual choke. I don't understand that, but whatever. We won't worry about it. Choke works. God, I don't know why it's so sticky up here, but it's sticky at the actual choke, or at the pull knob, but not at the actual choke. It's strange. Anyway, I put a little bit of duct tape on this just to help keep water from getting down in there, and I just need to remember not to, like, you know, smash on that because I'll break it again. But yeah, choke cable works now, so that's exciting. One more thing off the list: tubes in the tire and do a tune-up, and we're basically there. That fucking star is moving. I'm not moving right now. We got a fucking UFO, boys. Let me get a second star in frame so that you can look at that shit. That's fucking weird. I don't know what that is. That's got to be some kind of like optical lensing or something. Yeah, anyway, it's probably just aliens. I'm gonna go get abducted or something. See y'all in the morning, maybe. I may not have all my kidneys, and I may have more than one hole for an anus. We'll find out. Hopefully I don't end up like them cows. Okay, so I'm on to another aside, just intellectually to keep me busy while I wait on these tubes. Tubes are going to be the next thing, but might as well brainstorm right now. So this deck is pretty rotten, and normally I wouldn't care, but the trouble is that is those two things, which are quite soft, are the only two things holding this deck plate to the actual frame, which is what you lift up on. Well, other than these pieces of metal that are pushed down onto it. And I don't really like that. Additionally, that whole Go straight down on top of the engine where all the, electricals are and the starter. Don't like that either. So we're going to do something to keep the rainwater from going straight down on top of the engine. I'd rather it sit in the bed and rust the bed than sit on top of the engine and rust the engine. Probably why the, clutch filled up with water and why the, exhaust valve got stuck. Well, that was just because of humidity, but I digress. Thankfully, I got a ton of scrap metal of just the right kind of flavor. And there's a lot more over there, this is all stuff that I've never had a use for because I never do body work. Body work. But I think we got just the right thing. I've got this absolutely trashed roadside reflector that is, I think, 6 foot long, and that bed's like 4 and some change. So what I'm hoping I can do is just bend it up about 3 or 4 inches on either side, cut it over here to length with 3 to 4 inches, fold it up like this, slide it all the way back up against this frame. I guess I'll have to cut a relief cut over there for those things. Not a big deal. But slide it all the way up against like that, and then bolt it that way to the frame. Maybe repurpose those handles. That's some kind of pot metal. I'm not touching that. But slide her up on into there, and just bolt her to the side, and then run some self-tappers down all the way along that edge into this right here, which is softer than I want it to be, all the way down there, and then trim those off. And before we do that, we'll come in here, we'll wire wheel everything, and I'll at least coat the bed with some rust eater, which I've already got, and probably on top of that, might as well go buy a can of paint over rust spray paint and just spray the whole bed, the whole car, whole Gator, just to quiet that down, encapsulate the rust just a skosh, and then we'll knock off all the chunks and all that stuff, and then self-temper that up there, and that'll give us a structural support that'll hold the frame to the bed. And then I've got this little drain pan for an air conditioner that came out of the attic, and it's already galvanized, and it's kind of about the perfect size, and it's already got edges. So all I'm going to need to do is basically cut this guy to length, leave a little bit extra, fold that up so that I've got a wing on this side, and then flatten that wing down, and that'll cover basically the back 3/4, about to that hole right there, with a nice sheet of galvanized steel. And I might actually cut another piece to fill up the rest of it and just kind of fold that over the edge, and then we'll basically pop rivet that, or I might just because the thing is, it's not going to have those divots, so it's not going to be perfectly sealed. There's going to be an air gap under there, and water will get in there, so I don't want to seal it in. I was thinking about just putting that plate down and spray foaming under it, but that probably is not the best idea, because that spray foam is just going to disintegrate, and then water will get in there anyway and down on the engine. It defeats the whole purpose of giving it structural integrity. I think we might do that. I think we might do this one first, and then lay this one on there, and then just pop rivet it very lightly all the way around. It's a deck. It doesn't need to be crazy. Kind of don't want pop rivets down there because it'll interfere with the shovel, so I guess I'll have to do them in the depressions or something like that. We'll get in there and we'll massage it with a hammer. It's not, the deck's already trashed. Nothing crazy, but that's already galvanized, so that's great. So that'll help fight the rust for however 2 years this thing's got left in it, and probably by that point I'll know how to weld, and I'll just fab my own thing. That's not gonna happen, but we might do that, and then we can move on to making a tailgate. And I think I'm probably just going to make some kind of bracket that just sits in like that, and just drop a 2x8 in there. I don't need to do nothing crazy. Just get some jousts or something. I'm not going to be able to make anything load bearing, so there's not really a point on having the tailgate. So yeah, don't really feel like doing latches or any of that other crap. So I think we're just going to have a bracket like that, and we're just going to have a 2x8 with go handles, or probably just a rope on either side, and you just pull it straight up, and then you can dump it if you want to. And that should be good enough. But we're going to work on these tubes first before we get to that, and just know that it's coming. It's coming. If that don't work, I got that. Pull them drawers out, and if that don't work, I got even more galvanized ductwork over there. So we shall see. Something's gonna happen. All right. Well, we got tires off, and they're in here, ready to get their beads busted and tubes stuffed in them. And I got bags over the spindles because it's raining now for the first time in a month. And yeah, starter was acting funny a minute ago. Didn't want to crank. Well, now it's doing it fine. I was going to show it off to somebody. That's how it works. But anywho, we got everything to do a tune-up kit. So while I got her on stands, I'm gonna get in there, change the oil, and we'll also throw a new spark plug, new air filter, and a new fuel filter in too. So actually, I'm gonna do those first three real quick because they don't take but a second. Okie dokie, new fuel filter, new air filter, and brand new spark plug. So that boot fits way better on that, and I have a feeling that that's why this thing seemed like it was a little bit starved for air. And yeah, I think fuel filter was fine. I don't see any problem with it. So yeah, but peace of mind. Weeding out issues before they become a problem. And I bought just a cheap thing off of online, and it turns out that these were actually quality parts because that was actually an NGK I put in there, and it's actually like a actual same factory spec fuel filter. So that's good. That's better than the cheap crap I was intending to buy. Alrighty, well, it turns out that this Kawasaki FE290D, at least on the 98 Gator, does not have an oil filter because it's supposed to be like coming off of that plate right there, and as you can see, there's nothing right here. There's just a drain bolt down there, and you just fill it through a dipsticks tube. So I got a scored free oil filter, I guess. Could have bought a kit with that one, but all the kits I saw had one that came with that. So I guess this version of the Gator did not come with an oil filter mount. So interesting. So we're not gonna put an oil filter in it. I guess we'll just drain the oil, and I think it actually takes like it's like 1 1/4 quarts. And I've got some old 10W30 and a little bit of mildly used 5W30. So we'll just fill it up with all the 10W30 we got and top it off with the 5W30 and call it a day. And yeah, that's all she'll need tune-up wise. Actually, I do want to inspect the valve lash. It's running great, but I do at the very least want to take this guy off and then pop this valve cover off and just make sure that the valve lash is correct, but I'm not going to do that when it's drizzling out. So we'll do that in the oil change tomorrow. And instead, we're going to work on tubes. And I don't know how big of a problem this is going to be. The only set of tubes I've done was for a rim that size, but with a tire that was probably. And that was a pain, but I tried to do that, but I pushed the bead in and then did it. I think what I'm going to do is try and pop the bead up over the top and then fold it in and then push the bead back down. I think that should be a little bit easier, but we shall see. I will start with, I guess, the back ones just because they're bigger, and we'll see if we can pop those beads off. I don't need to pull the whole thing off. I think, with how tall these are, I may just be able to push the tube right in around it and not have to fiddle with anything. The hardest part's getting the valve stem in. So we will attempt to do that, and I will report whether or not I have ripped any inner tubes in half. All right, well, it took 2 hours, but we got it done, and it actually wasn't all that much trouble. That one fought me getting it off the bead, and then it fought me trying to set the bead, and we might actually have to buy a new tire for this because all these pop right back on the rim with about between 10 to 15 psi, and this one I wouldn't do that. So I went and put about 25 psi in it, and the belt started to rip right here, and you can see the inner tube. So we're going to put that on the passenger side so when it blows up, it doesn't knock me unconscious with the backside of a exploded tire. But yeah, that one's on its last legs. Bead's literally falling off the other side, so I'm going to be on the lookout for another rear tire for one of these. But those two took the tube just fine. That guy took tube just fine. That guy's trying to die. Still not back on the bead. But they're all got 10 psi in them now. I think factory spec is 6. That just seems kind of low. So I just put 10 in them because it's a nice even number. And we'll see how it rides. And maybe we'll let them back out. But yeah, that is good to go. So we'll throw them back on the Gator tomorrow. But I'm going to wait and do the oil change first just because it'll be easier to get underneath it without all these big tires in the way. Then we'll throw those on it, and I don't have anything else to do with it now other than, fiddling with the bed and the front cowl. So we'll mess with that next couple of days, and I just ordered up a new headlight and some transmission fluid and something else. Oh, and tie rod end boots, or inner tie rod rack and pinion boots. So those will show up, and we'll fix those eventually, and we'll band-aid the tie rod end boots. I just realized we're going to have to beat those off with a pickle fork, so they're not gonna survive. But yeah, we'll figure it out. But those guys are done, and shit, fuck it. Let's do an oil change tonight. Still got an hour, so yeah, let's get to that. Alrighty, well, that's a draining. We'll see how much comes out of there. But man, it got significantly blacker the further up it went. But we got probably mostly kind of all of a slightly full quart, and this is like half a quart of 5W30 and a little bit of something in it. But we're just gonna dump that back in there and call it good. Basically a mower engine, it don't care. Okie dokie. Well, there's the oil, and had a little bit of some shiny in it, and it's definitely needed to be changed. And I remembered I actually care about this engine and I want it to actually survive, so I went ahead and just dumped some brand new 30 weight mower oil in it, because it's basically a mower engine. Never gets below freezing over here. It's really starting to rain now. And just probably about 1/8 of a quart of 10W30 in there just to top it off. And we're right at the top of the hash mark, so I'm going to call that good. And I'm going to close this thing down and go dump that in my black diesel barrel and stop getting rained on. And I guess might as well just throw the tires back on it right now, unless it really starts raining in the next 15 minutes. Alright, tires are back on. Threw a gallon of gas in the tank. We've done a full tune-up. I think it's time to fire her up, make sure she still runs. And it's only 9:30. Let's go take a 30-minute cruise up the road and see if we can find any deer we can run into. You know, add another dent in the front. And you know, just see whether or not we blow the tire up immediately. Alright, let's see, where the hell is choke? Pull her all the way out. Turn her on. Headlight still works good. Loyal. Just a loyal machine. She's a runner. Still needs to warm up a little bit, but about a little bit more choke, and let's see how far we can get. Alright, so she goes. Well, the brakes work. I should probably put the headlights on. That'll help. Ooh. Tire don't like that. Can't find the brakes. There's the brakes. Let's see, do I got this? Alright, diff's unlocked. She's not very quick. And this headlight don't work worth a shit, but let's see where we can go. Well, GPS says we're doing about 12.5 miles an hour. Factory spec says it's supposed to do about 15 and some change. So we're missing some top-end power. I have a feeling that carburetor's probably not letting all that much gas in it. But she's running, and she's going. She stays straight for the most part. Don't know how much torque she has in her, but, you know, hopefully it'll haul some logs around. And let's hope we can make it a mile up to the end of the road and a mile back. Well, it looks like we lost a chunk of cow when I backed out of the driveway. I was wondering what it was eating. Looks like it was that. And yeah, I don't really got a lot of foot room up in here. Not all that great. Foot-wise, seat space for a normal-sized American size. Maybe I can adjust this seat or something, but oh boy, I'm crammed up in here. I got my knees smashed everywhere. All right, well, she's back and she runs and drives. And I've got no idea where that went. Hey, it backfires too. I'm pretty sure that was there before, and it's not there now. Well, it's trying to go, but well, ooh, that's not great. Oof. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find a new tire for that. Run good otherwise. Still, it's surging though, so something's wrong with the carburetor. So probably need a new carburetor. But it's got a lot of pep, but the governor seems to like really pull her on back down. So I might need to fiddle with that, because I can get her to go about like 17 miles an hour, and then it just like all of a sudden goes, ooh, it just dies. It just loses like a quarter of my speed. So the governor is like really reining me back. But anyway, I digress. No, this has been gone the whole time. I don't know how I just really ever noticed it. I guess that's the first time I've actually been able to, stick my feet into it. So we'll have to jury rig a mud flap or something to just dirty dangle down there so I'm not getting, sprayed in the mouth so much. Alrighty, well, we got her all busted apart because we're going to pressure wash her. Why? Not because I want it clean, but because I need to knock all this fucking rust scale and flaking paint off, because I'm going to attempt to repair the deck just enough that I, can keep the bed, actually attached to the frame, because at the moment it's kind of just dirty dangling, and I want to put some, rust encapsulator on here and wire wheel the rust before I put anything down on the bed. So kind of need to get all that off, and there's no easier way to do that than high pressure water. So let's get to it. Okie dokie. Well, she's been pressure washed, and she doesn't really look any different, but there's not a whole pile of dirt down here in the frame anymore. That's really what I was trying to do, that and clean anything that was potentially on the deck out. And since then, I've been letting her dry. Fired her up, still runs. Haven't ruined anything with a good hard soaking. And I've done a couple of things. One, I mounted that bracket down in there for the parking brake, or for the trans brake, because that spring was not hooked up to anything. So I just self-tapered that in there to be roughly the same placement as that, then hooked the spring into it. And I took the spring from the throttle that attaches to the governor, and I moved it from this hole to that hole, which should give the throttle pedal a little bit more torque against the governor, because the governor seems to be a little bit aggressive, in my opinion. And that should bias it more towards the throttle and less towards the actual governor arm. The governor arm appears to be sticky, so I have lubed the piss out of it. I'm hoping it should get a little bit better, but it seems to stick. And that might be why it was being a little bit aggressive, but we'll see. And I started repairing the cowl. Haven't actually done any of the repair work yet, but I'm just lining things up and drilling out holes for cracks. Just coming in with about a 3/16 bit, finding every single hole and every single crack in the plastic, and then going about 1/8 of an inch ahead of the crack and drilling out a hole, and that gives the crack a place to spread, but it won't spread past that point because that semicircle will fully distribute the load. And just went and got the screwdrivers and lined up this whole crack up in here, and we're going to use this plastic sort of welder riveter sandwich zippy guy doohickey. It's basically just soldering iron that you hook this resistive wire into the end of. It heats up, and you melt it in the plastic and turn it, and then it cools around the plastic and it holds it in place. And I repaired the last repaired a John Deere cowl for a mower. It actually worked really well. It's ugly as sin, and you have to take a grinder to it and sand it, and bond to it, and all this other stuff. And I'm not doing that. I'm just going to put these things in there and then just like grinder off the metal bits, and that's good enough to hold it all together. And I just want it to be structurally sound, so I'm going to do both of the mud flaps first before I do the cowl, because it's way easier to get to the mud flaps from through the cowl, and I don't really feel like taking the cowl off. So we're going to do that real quick, and by real quick, I mean it's going to take me like 5 hours and probably 2 full days, but I got a chair and I got beer, so I'm going to get to it. Okie dokie. So I took a bit of a detour. I realized, hey, I should probably put, the rust converter on this thing sooner rather than later. So I just took the wire wheeled all the clods off of here, banged on it with a hammer, knocked all the rest of the chunks off, which shows you how little is actually holding this on. It's being held on by like that bolt, I think, and that's it. And then anyway, wire wheeled it, blew it off there, and I've just painted it with some of this rust converter that I've had lying around. And I know it still works because I dumped some on the ground over there and the concrete sizzled, so it's still acidic. And it's been just finished up a second ago. We started about 15 minutes ago. This is to let it go for 30 minutes. I'm going to let it go for like a fucking day. And we're just going to let it marinate. And I put such a thin coat on it that, there's not enough, active converter in there to probably convert all of it. It'll hit all the surface stuff, like up here on the rails and all that stuff. But like, these big chunks, I just want it to form enough of a skin on it that when I'm going to pretty much paint this entire bed, the whole inside, with Rust-Oleum rust reformer, and just see what that does. I'm going to use this as a test bed, quite literally, pun intended, for yonder Mercedes over there that you can't see because of all them plants. It's over there, trust me. Which I need to do a rust treatment all over the floor pan on that thing. So we're going to see how well this rust reformer works out here in the elements. And yeah, I might go to the store and buy some of that tonight. Don't know, it's Halloween. Kind of don't want to go to the store because I don't want to run over a bunch of kids. Because they just like to play in the street during Halloween. But yeah, we'll see. I think I'm probably just going to cut this metal to shape. But I don't think I'm going to get to that tonight because I still got to do this. I did, you know, just a little bit of work down here, and then I was like, oh, I should probably do this while I spend the next several days, hours working on this. So I'm just trying to get the stuff that's hard to access right now on these fenders. And I'm going to finish doing that. And we'll just kind of do like just enough staples just to hold everything together, and then we'll slap this back together and start working on that. Alrighty, well, it's like 7 o'clock now. It's been like an hour and a half. And the rust converter has not converted much of the rust. It's gotten a few spots. But that's about it. I think I'm going to do another coat before I head in. But it's slow working. Needs a little bit more juice. However, I have totally repaired all of these plastic bits. Well, as repaired as they're going to get with what's left. And, you know, it's totally solid. So, don't need to do much more work to that. I might come in here and take a flap disc to those and those right there, just because that's where my toesies are going to be. And I'd rather not have my, feet ripped open by these incredibly sharp things, because I just trimmed them with a set of dikes. I didn't do anything fancy to them. But yeah, I'm pretty much out of these little plastic welding staple thingy doohickey what's it wires. So that's about all I can do, but I'm done. So I think the only thing left is I might buy like a set of truck mud flaps or something, just the cheapest shit I can find. And I'm probably going to rivet one right there and then fill up this gap with another one. Just to keep me from, one, jamming my foot in there, and two, keep mud and exploded tires from hitting me in the back of the leg. So we'll do that, but gotta run to the store tomorrow. And yeah, nothing else much more I can do today, other than put another coat of rust eater on here and just let it simmer overnight, and hopefully that should do something to this bed. So I'm gonna get to that. And all right, well, just did another coat of that and put the bed down now so it can actually sit and marinate. And got the floor pan too with what little bit left over I had, and we'll just leave that on there permanently, and we'll see what that'll do. But if it doesn't eat through thin rust like that, then it's not going to. But we'll spray it down with some rust reformer just to try and settle things down a bit. Then we'll slap some aluminum, then some galvanized steel on it, and we'll call it a day and stop paying attention to it. Alright, well, it's the next morning, and it actually seems like it rained just a tiny amount, like 1/8 of an inch, which was just enough to run all the rust eater off and probably dissolve some divots in the concrete over here. So it didn't do its magic, which is regrettable. Seems to have done just a tiny amount, but for the most part, not much of anything. So I think we're gonna pop this up, let her drain, and we can look at how much shit it's done on the engine. Not actually that much, but I am gonna spray the engine down with water just to get rid of any excess rust eater, because that stuff is acidic and it will corrode the engine. Don't know what it'll do to aluminum. Probably nothing good. Okie dokie. Well, we bought 5 cans of this, and should hopefully not need more than a can for this guy. But we're just going to paint the entire bed, and I'm probably not going to paint the entire thing. I'm just going to spray exposed rust, and we'll get the bottom down there, and we'll get all of this up here, and then we might as well do the floor pan down here as well. And it should be it. We'll spray that too. I'm not gonna go too crazy, but This thing says I only need to put one coat on, so I guess this isn't actually a paint, it's more of just a converter. So yeah, we're just going to do that, and then we're going to slap some steel right down on top of it, give it, a couple minutes to dry, and probably spray that down too just for the hell of it and call it a day. Well, took 3 cans, but the whole bed's painted, and we got all the little trim edges, as well as a good bit of the undercarriage of the bed, and also some of the floor pan. Don't really like how that's kind of giving it a trimmed look, but it'll probably come to grow on me. Matches the black plastic up here and the tires at the very least. But yeah, that should hopefully be rust reformed now. This stuff is basically a primer, so I'm actually going to splash some dark gray exterior paint on it, because I just so happened to find where this 15-year-old can of paint was hiding, because I needed it to paint my Deere feeder. So I've already got this open, and this has been drying now for about 2-3 hours. So I'm just throw that on it, let that cook overnight, and hopefully that should be nice and primed and exterior painted and rust encapsulated and rust treated, and then we can just fold all that metal up, self-tapper it in, maybe throw a little bit more paint on it and call it a day. So I guess I'm gonna do that right now because I'm waiting on paint to dry, so might as well wait on more paint to dry. All right, well, that's been painted. Can't really quite tell unless you look real close, but I tried to keep it underneath the folds in the steel, and I painted the inside of that, and then a bunch of shit down here that just looks terrible. Painted that, kind of regret that. I'll spray paint that back black. But yeah, just covered everything that was important. And we're gonna let that air dry, and hopefully the dew is not too terribly thick tonight, because it could just wash everything off, and I'm not parking this thing in the garage because I have to make room, and I'm lazy and I ain't doing that. So I think I'm gonna come over here and start bending on some steel, because it shouldn't be too hard to cut that guy up. And we got something else I need to work on. If you look right there, what is that? We got a big huge vise now, so I need to hurry up and mount this thing to this corner of the workbench, and this will be just the perfect size to bend that aluminum with plenty of jaw depth. Oh, that should be nice, much better than working with a 4-inch. So I think I'm gonna do that real quick, and then bang on some steel. All right, well, the big vise is mounted, and I got all the cut marks marked out, and we're just gonna fire up the angle grinder and just we're gonna zip off that corner and then fold that over and then drill that hole, and then zip that off there, then zip off that corner, then fold that over and drill those holes, and we should be good to go. And just like that, we've christened the vise, and we have made one aluminum rear deck support. So that should hopefully just drop in, and there'll be ideally about an 1/8 inch gap on either side, and if my geometry is just messed up enough, it'll be perfect, and we can just run a couple of bolts. I decided to make this wall 3 inches tall so that it sits underneath the handle bolts over there, and we'll trim it down if it happens to be a little bit too big, and that should be good to go, plug and play. You know what, let's take this out there and see if this fits at all. I'm not really worried if that interior paint, exterior paint, whatever the hell, some kind of paint messed up or not. But yeah, let me turn the flash on. And it looks like she's gonna fit perfectly, so I'm gonna pop that back off before I scuzz this up too bad, and I can't do it one-handed. Shit, give me a sec. Alright, well, it looks like she's gonna fit like a glove, so good deal. Alrighty, now there that is. That only took me like 20 minutes. And yeah, I'm really resisting the urge to stick this thing in there. I already attempted to test fit it, and it fit in, perfectly, so I didn't go all the way. But yeah, she is ready to go. I just need it to be light out with dried paint, and we can just sluice all that in there and run the bolts. I made these a little bit shorter than I wanted, just because of the height of the handles on the for the side of the deck. So you're gonna have to drill through the deck plate a little bit, but I can just put some fender flare washers on there, and that'll allow me to snug up onto there. I might actually run carriage bolts, because that should allow me to actually do a flush fit. Won't be able to do said fender flares, but if you get large enough fender washers with a large enough hole in it, or drill them out, you can. So yeah, I think that will be the way to go. But she's looking scuzzy. I'm gonna throw this right on top of that freshly painted deck, but you know, them's the breaks. I'm really thinking about spray foam now, because I don't want this thing to leak. But you know, spray foam is kind of the devil. So I don't really know what to do. I guess actually no, I don't need to spray foam. I'll just fucking caulk the thing. So I got plenty of caulk. We got a fucking crate of this shit somewhere. Well, we got a bunch of spray foam now too. Oh, there's the caulk. It's right behind the spray foam. But anyway, we got tons of caulk, so I'm just gonna probably caulk this thing in, just to help keep the water in the deck. I don't expect it to last like any amount of time at all, but you know, might as well. Actually, I think I might have some roofing caulk. Now that I think about it. Yeah, that should work. So we'll set that aside for tomorrow, and that will be a tomorrow Tom problem. I'm going to go root through all my bolts and see if I have anything. Actually, I don't know if I have carriage bolts, but I know I have a big bag of metric nuts and bolts right here that I want to get rid of, so we'll use that if nothing else. And yeah, I'm just going to generally prepare for tomorrow. Alrighty, so I got in the groove and I jumped ahead a little bit, but we got the plate installed on the front, fit like a glove. Got the holes drilled out, set that guy in there. Fits like a glove, got the holes drilled out at the front, and I have just absolutely schmooed this entire fucking thing with as much goo as I could pull out of the cupboard. So finished off 2 tubes of liquid wrench, 2 tubes of caulk, and a tube of roofing asphalt. Laid one big fat bead exactly the whole way across with roofing asphalt, literal perfect amount. Slapped that guy down on there. I have self-tappered it in 4 places up there, and then again on either corner up from the bottom. Ran some Gorilla Tape down that crack in the middle, and then I have just stuffed caulk and liquid wrench all up underneath that gap, just to make sure that we're not getting any water going out that way. And then we put down a lattice of liquid wrench and a little bit more down there, and I'm fixing to just plop this guy in here, run those bolts back in, and we're just gonna pop rivet that thing and probably grab 1 more tube of caulk and just caulk this whole front lip. We're gonna have a big fat air gap up here, which is not ideal, but we have a hole over there, so it should drain. Don't have a hole over there, might drill one out. That's the way she goes. But those drain off onto the side, so that's not a problem. And yeah, that should be good to go, hopefully. And we're gonna pop rivet and caulk that in place, and that should be all the schmoo it needs. Alrighty, well, after some mild persuasion, there she is. Looks a lot worse, but technically it's a lot better, maybe. So yeah, I'm gonna hold off on the rivets for now. I'm gonna throw a couple cinder blocks in there up on the front just to make sure that that liquid wrench bonds, because this thing is a little bit warped. But I've beat it mostly to shape, and I may just glue the thing to the side walls. I don't really know if I want to drill any more holes in here for rivets. Not really. I don't really want to. So I think we'll attempt to adhere this thing on the sides, and maybe caulk down here on the front. And yeah, I think I've got another tube of construction adhesive, so that should be sufficient. And we'll call it a day with that. But we're gonna huck cinder blocks in it, let it cure, and we'll fiddle with that tomorrow. Oh yeah, I remembered one more thing. I've massaged that side of the tailgate back into shape, and I figured I should probably do that before the glue cures. So that has been done. Okay, for real this time. One other thing. I also remembered that I put 10 psi in all the tires, and the factory spec is 6. So I dropped them all down to 6 psi in an effort to hopefully keep that guy from escaping into atmosphere. And, you know, that should improve the ride height, hopefully, maybe, and maybe get me at least 1 more stump run in out of that. Alright, well, the deck's decked, and that's as good as it's going to get. I might actually run a bead of caulk down either side just to keep water from going in and underneath. But we'll do that later. But anywho, I think she's good enough now that we can call this episode. So if you like this kind of stuff, consider liking the video, comment, mention some of the other things I could do to this Gator to, you know, put some life back in her. And if you want to see more of this crap, you gotta smash the big red button and subscribe. And until next time, I'm out.